It's been a long while.
How is the economy treating you?
We are managing. For now, that's what we can say.
You mean better than Nkrumah's economy?
To be very frank, I didn't live in Nkrumah's economy. But if Nkrumah's economy was even this bad, I'm not sure anybody will ever mention his name. So I'll be very surprised. But I hope you're well.
I'm good. I'm good.
What have you been spending your time on nowadays, aside party activities, or you gone to the academia?
Well, no, I have been doing party activities full time. In fact, this year I've toured the entire country twice.
Okay.
Yes.
You've been around Ghana twice?
Yes, every constituency twice. And we've been doing a lot of things.
Okay.
We've been doing some trainings here and there across the country. Okay. And beyond that, my department has been on a major outreach.
Okay.
You know, we are responsible for inter-party and civil society relations. And so it means that we lead external relations with respect to identifiable groups, trade unions, religious and para-religious organizations, various associations, civil societies, and so on and so forth. And so in the past 2 months, as part of the preparations towards the elections, we've been engaging a lot of groups and unions. And so that is what we have been doing. And the intention is to woo them and also share our vision with them, and also seek, most importantly, their inputs into the preparation of our manifesto. And we have been working on the manifesto as well. And you know, I'm a member of the manifesto committee. And so most of the engagements that we've been doing thoroughly, you know, over the past 2 months, basically is just to pick inputs into the finalization of our manifesto. You know, the NDC for the past 8 years, since we lost power, we have been doing extensive work on policy. First of all, we started with our initial stock taking, what we think we could do better, which stock taking led to most of the activities we did in the run-up to 2020. And that led us to the preparation of the People's Manifesto. And after the People's Manifesto, President Mahama felt that the kind of work we have done with the inputs from the general populace and the level, the quality of the policies we had put together at the time, the team needed to continue doing some work. And so the manifesto committee at the time was transmogrified, if you want, into a think tank. So we call the NDC Lab. And we've been working for the past 4 years, well, if you want, 3.5 years, until recently the manifesto committee was commissioned again, recommissioned, to continue the work and finalize our manifesto. So in the past few months, we've been working vigorously on finalizing the manifesto. And as part of the preparation of the People's Manifesto, once again, we had to reach out to various segments of society. And we have been engaging various groups. In fact, we have met not less than 100 organizations, both as a manifesto committee and also from my department. In fact, in the past 3-4 weeks, we have met not less than 40 organizations, including CLOSAG, including IDEG, Imani, CDD, the Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, so many of them. And we are still in the processes of meeting them. Next week, we have a number of them lined up, and the subsequent weeks, we have a number of them lined up. The whole idea is to let them understand and appreciate that for the first time in the political history of Ghana, there's a political party that believes in engagement, collaboration, and reaching out to them. And for that matter, has set up a department, which has become a permanent spot for them to plug in their distress. And so when they have any concerns at all that they think that the NDC could be of useful support, they have a place where they can easily enter. And so our relationship with these organizations, across board, has been very, very significant and impactful. Okay. And most of the inputs that they have made are very, very crucial in the formulation of our manifesto policies, which we are going to launch very soon.
Okay. But so far, you said you've been engaging them. How's the response been to this new idea of having you dedicated to ensuring that you build a relationship with the CSOs? And of course, because you are the biggest opposition party, also your relationship with other opposition parties. So far, how is it going? How's the work?
Well,
getting results?
It's been very exciting and exceedingly positive in terms of results. You will need to be in some of our meetings, because most of our meetings, the kind of ambience we create, engenders, honesty, and they are free. Okay. They are free to talk and share their feelings. And most of the things that we have observed engaging them is that indeed they are passionate about change. They are passionate about changing the circumstances in the country. Almost all of them are very passionate about restructuring our economy. They are passionate about building an economy that is responsive to the needs of the people. Okay. And that is all that you will need from them. For the parties, our engagements with the parties has been long-standing. From the days when I was Deputy General Secretary. Mm-hmm. You recall, I led the mobilization of almost all the smaller parties into an inter-party coalition for most of the things that we did at the time. And still, we have been collaborating on a number of things because we share the common worries that you and I go through. The kind of difficulties that the small parties experience is the same kind of difficulties that we are experiencing. And so mostly you will see that our views will be consistent. Okay. And so that is the how the feeling has been like. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is very crucial for political organizational success, because again, as a National Democratic Congress Social Democratic Party, we carry some natural allies. Our natural allies, these identifiable groups, these parapolitical organizations, trade unions, civil society, the vulnerable groups of society, and all that. And history has it that we started the party with these people. And so the PNDC at the time, through our efficient national mobilization effort, brought all these groups of people together to restore the economy back on its feet during the days of the PNDC and the NDC. But along the line, it might have appeared that we had lost touch with most of these organizations, and a lot of things had changed. But again, political evolution would advise or would guide that you put the systems in place to reach out to them. And so that is why the NDC now has set up the department, and is the first of its kind, having a department in the political party to reach out, because we believe that among all other things, if we want to build a country that that promotes shared wealth, that is responsive to the needs of the people, you can only do that through consensus building and collaboration and continuous engagement. And I'm sure you must have heard President Mahama repeatedly say on every platform that his government is going to be a government that will engage major critical stakeholders in almost every matter. So we build the country together. We must build the country in such a manner that would address the needs of the people, so that it wouldn't appear as if you are building your private enterprise like our friends are doing. The government must work for the people, because what is democracy after all? Democracy should be for the people, by the people. You understand? And so if it's for the people, and the people must run the democracy, then you can't do that without engaging them.
Lots of people you speak to, especially those in communication and also in policy, when they go back to 2020, when they have conversations with them, they talk about how responsive your manifesto at the time was. But that was for 2020. Now, since then, you said you've been operating as a lab So you monitor the changing trends and see the adjustments that can be made to what essentially will come out as a 2024 manifesto. Now, we'll come back to this comparison with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You know where we are now. 2020 was not so good, but 2024 is very bad. And I'm sure you'll be monitoring as we go along. Now, we've done a DDEP, essentially restructure our debt, which means that if and when the people of Ghana vote for former President John Dramani Mahama, it comes, he starts paying debt that they are currently not paying. So there are many things that people are expecting. People are expecting you to hold them much more accountable. How, from what you are preparing, I know you cannot tell me what's in the manifesto, but what will be the significant differences between that manifesto you put forward and the one that you're working on?
Okay, so let me start off this way. The current economic conditions in Ghana is worse than 1979. And it's worse than even 1983.
Worse than 1979?
Worse than 1979. And the reason is very simple.
These are significant periods.
Yes. The nation is virtually bankrupt. The nation has no money. The nation has borrowed itself into total crisis. And when they say a nation is bankrupt, what it means is that the nation is not able to raise enough revenue to even take care of its basic needs.
Okay.
And above all, the nation is not able to raise enough domestic revenue or, a fiscal effort to even address, our debt.
Okay.
So what it means is that all the money that you collect from your domestic revenue, you use it to pay interest on loans. Only interest, not the loans, not the principals, but only interest.
Okay.
And that is how bad the economy is. And that is why our healthcare systems are in crisis. That is why education is in crisis. That is why nothing is working in this country. That is why the exchange rate is on the roofs. And that is why inflation is on 100 kilometer per hour speed. Okay. And so everything is out of control. Indeed, the current information that we have right now about the economy is not a true reflection of the economy. It's not a true reflection of the situation.
Not a true reflection
yes,
of
it's not a true, even the current one that you know.
The one that I was just describing.
Yes, the one that we are describing right now. The bankruptcy we are describing right now is actually not the real situation that we know. And so for policymakers, what you have to do is to assume the worst, because this government has shown they've shown uncountable times that they are not truthful with even economic data.
So you're suggesting that if you
go creative data reporting, and they hide very critical things, that the people need to know. And so for us formulating policy, whatever indicator that we are using to design our policies, we are assuming the worst, because look,
worse than what we have currently.
Worse than what we have.
So if you're talking about Cocoa Board, you're looking at debt that is bigger than
what is there. Are you aware that even our cocoa bills alone, under the DDEP, we have rescheduled 7.1 billion Ghana cedi of cocoa debts just to start to be paid from next year. Okay. Going. Some of them are 5 years, some of them are 6 years. And so we've loaded all into the future that we have to pay before 2028. And so the crisis is worse than it is. And there's a slump in our commodity production, even though the prices are doing well on the international market. Okay. So most of the things that are holding the economy, like cocoa, like gold, we are virtually doing nothing. And the thing about gold cry is even worse, because the small scale sector, the ASM, is contributing about 40% of our total gold production. Okay. But in actual fact, our gold revenue, they contribute less than 2%.
Less than 2%?
Yes. And so 40% of our gold production wealth is produced by the small scale industry, but they contribute only less than 2%, simply meaning about 38% of that wealth that is supposed to have contributed to our GDP is going to other countries. And maybe we'll come back to that and speak to it later. But the situation is this worse, that if we are not careful, it may get to a point in time that even getting food to it would be very difficult.
Will be difficult?
Yes, because look, farmers are even unable to produce. And go around and see. I had a call from a gentleman, a farmer in the Afram Plains, who said that last year, in fact, last 3 years, he was cultivating about 40 acres of land. I mean, he could do that. Then last year, he came to about 20 acres of land in the season. Yes, half. And this year, he is doing 10 acres of land. I asked him, what is happening? There's a look. I can't buy the inputs. I can't buy the seeds. I can't buy the agrochemicals. I can't buy the weedicides. I am unable to do it. And there is no arrangement to get it on credit because those that are bringing it are even struggling, to bring them in. And so there's a real challenge that is confronting every sector of the economy. You pick health, and they have the real ugly-headed, challenge that is facing. You pick education. And so everything else in this country is collapsed. And maybe along the line, I'm going to open up a few things to you. For example, the education budget. 90% of the entire education budget for Ghana goes into free SHS. And out of this free SHS, out of this 90%,
yes, of the education budget?
Yes.
You're talking about
for basic,
secondary,
tertiary, and secondary. 90% is going to free SHS.
So the rest have to share 10%.
They have to share the 10%. And as if that is not enough, 70% of that 90% goes into feeding the students in their schools.
70%?
Yes, and yet the suppliers are always picketing at NAFCO, demanding for their
70%
money.
of our total education budget goes into feeding senior high school.
Yes, the 90% that goes into free SHS. 70%
of
goes
that
into
90%.
feeding. Yes, goes into feeding. And so even if we are serious about it and we are managing it very well, that 70% could be heavy investment for agriculture. But guess what happens? They import their commodities. So they import rice.
Okay.
They import all the things. They import tomatoes. They import everything, including even eggs.
Instead of giving the money to the local farmer, they use it to bring in
And listen to the worst part. The worst part is that this entire contract does not go to more than 10 people.
70% of the 90% of education budget
does not go to more than 10 contractors. And so you have family members of the government appointees who are managing this huge chunk of the money, and they are doing importation.
I see.
Yeah. That is how bad. So the morality is on the low, integrity is on the low. There is theft, there is corruption, and I mean the country is just being run aground. I mean, whether deliberate or unconsciously, but it's being run aground across sectors. And I can speak to, almost every sector you pick. There's a problem.
So you at the lab have done an analysis of the current situation, the choices that are being made, the policy choices, and how it is contributing to our current situation.
Yes, well, as at this point, as a manifesto committee, we have done a thorough analysis of that, and that is what is informing the policy proposals that we are making, and most of it also the technical experts who are working in various organizations and identifiable groups have also, extra information, which enriches the kind of formulation that you do. And so our biggest problem right now as a group or as a government is to think about a quick fix. How we can, within the shortest possible time, fix and restore the economy back on its feet.
Can there be a fix quick?
Oh yes, there can be a quick fix.
A quick fix?
Yes. There can be a quick fix. And
when you owe money, there's no quick fix.
No, you see, that's the point. And so the quick fix would be it's like you are in an abyss. So you are trying to come out of the abyss. You are traveling a journey and you fell into the abyss. First, you must come out of the abyss. Then you can now continue the journey at any speed that you may think of. You want an accelerated speed, but whilst you are in the abyss, you can't speed. And so what it means is that as a government, we should find very creative and smart ways of coming out of the abyss. And those are the policies that we are looking at. So you see President Mahama talk about most of the policy proposals he mentioned on Sunday. Most of those policy proposals are just to get us quickly out of the abyss so that we can be on a footing that, can take off. Because currently we are completely in the ICU.
I see. Very interesting. Is the running mate still part of the manifesto committee?
Very central part of the manifesto committee. In actual fact, the past 2 days we have been in a retreat on the mountains, trying to validate and finalize most of our policy proposals in the manifesto. And she has been with us in the past 2 days.
Professor Nana,
No, she doesn't miss a meeting. Sometimes I even miss meetings and she doesn't miss. She doesn't miss a meeting, and she's solid on policy. She's so solid on policy, and you see, there is a thing about why President Mahama chose Prof. Above all other things, that she's a woman. She has this motherly concern. She has this deep motherly concern about how to better the lives of the people. And perhaps I think that's what all politicians need. Because if there is that desire to do something for the people, you are sensitive to what the people want, what will work for the people. There was one proposal that I was making last 3 days at the meeting, and I was making my point very strongly. And she was laughing. Then when I was saying, you Peter, the thing that you are saying, this is the implications. And you, instead of using one stone to kill two birds, if you take this decision, you would be locked ahead, and you have the fiscal crisis that you can address. So let's look at how to stabilize the system so that you don't generate any fiscal crisis with your policies. The policies may be good and popular now, but it will generate fiscal crisis, and you may not be able to address other things. You understand? And that is the thinking that went into the progressive SHS, pre-SHS, when it was launched. That, okay, let's build the foundations. Which foundations will now become a propeller or a springboard for the implementation of the policy in full scale. But when you rush and you implement it now, then you go and get locked up in front. And so it's good to have somebody like that, in leading the team, thinking. Yeah. It makes the work easier because you want to build a country with policies that are sustainable. And sustainability should be a key indicator for every policy. If you implement any policy or you introduce any policy and it's not sustainable, then you must as well have done nothing and just put your hand in your demrifa and sit down. But policies must be sustainable, and it must have incremental benefits and incremental growth on the lives of the people. And that is basically what we are doing.
Well, if you just join us, this is, it's still Dr. Peter Boamah Otokunor, Director, Interparty and Civil Society Relation for the National Democratic Congress. Of course, former Deputy General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. Sometimes when I see them, I remember what happened in 2020. Very interesting. But
no,
not that one. Actually, your participation in even IPAC, the kind of energy you took there, and so I remember all that. But what then do you make of the suggestion? Because by Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh that this government has done better than Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And I don't have to, I don't think I have a capacity to educate you on the history of this country. And exactly what Nkrumah did and where he was trying to put this country. Now, if you put those two together and somebody tells you that this government is doing better than Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, how does that sound to you?
Well, it sounds very absurd. It sounds completely illogical. And it sounds heavily repulsive. And the reason why it sounds heavily repulsive is that I didn't live through Nkrumah, but there were indicators. And the performance of Ghana's economy under Nkrumah, if you are serious and you want to learn, is available for everybody to read. Okay. And actually, the key assets, the key capital assets of this country that we are relying on now were laid by Nkrumah. From the hospitals to the universities to the energy sector. I mean, from crane to crane, the foundation was laid by Nkrumah. In fact, Nkrumah, I have been trying over the years, from the days in the University of Ghana, to read about leaders. I have read about Park Chung-gi. I've read about Lim Kuan Yew. Park Chung-gi is of South Korea. Lim Kuan Yew is from Singapore. I have read about all these leaders, and I have read about Nkrumah. And most of them actually took inspiration. Park Chung-gi, for example, took inspiration from Nkrumah, because we all got independence at the same time. You see what he has done to South Korea. I mean, he stayed in office for a while, though, but he was able to transform the South Korea economy. And the kind of thinking that Nkrumah had at the time even surpassed the kind of thinking that Park Chung-gi and co had. But again, because of this same group of people who, surreptitiously worked with imperial forces to remove Nkrumah, we were not able to see the light of day. But even the small Nkrumah was able to do is what has kept this nation up to this point. No president in the history of Ghana, beyond all the work that we have been able to do, even as NDC, from Rawlings to Tamils to John Mahama, can be compared to what Nkrumah did for this country. Much less Akufo-Addo. Akufo-Addo is the worst president. In fact, he doesn't even qualify for an assemblyman. When it comes to his performance, yes.
Somebody currently in office.
I'm telling you that the performance of Akufo-Addo as a president would not pass for an assemblyman, because he does absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Look, bring President Akufo-Addo here and bring 3 journalists. Don't bring 10. Don't bring 20. Bring 3 journalists. And let's put him to question. Let's put him to scrutiny. He can't answer one question. Have you seen President Akufo-Addo even in a one-on-one interview, and he has not messed himself up before? Never. Never ever. Not in a single interview. Because he knows absolutely next to nothing. When you put him in front of the press, he will be calling his ministers to answer questions. You have not seen that before. He knows absolutely nothing. That is why the economy has been run aground. So if the head is rotten, what is the worth of the meat? The fish head is rotten. It means that the fish is gone. You understand? And like the proverbial snake, it's the head that controls the snake. When you cut the head off, the rest is rope. You can use it to tie your firewood. You understand? And that's what is happening to this government. And so, President Akufo-Addo does not qualify to be compared to even his MPs. Some of his MPs.
Does not qualify to be compared to
even some of his own MPs. How much more Nkrumah? And so, it's absurd for NAPO to have made that analysis. And it is the biggest goof of the century. It's the biggest political goof of the century. Now, I don't want to spend time on NAPO, because NAPO will bring absolutely no difference to the ticket of the MPP. And if for anything at all, he has made the ticket worse. You understand? Because you have a liar who is leading, and now you have gotten an arrogant, reckless running mate. I mean, that's the worst that you can get in any political combination. That's the worst you can get. I have not seen any political party in the world, any serious political party, that has such worst combination. And so, as to whatever the difference they will bring into the elections, I wouldn't want to go there. But I would just want to say one thing. You see, sometimes we as politicians, we make so many mistakes. And we think that it is all about just holding on to the power. We forget that it is most importantly because there is some people, that is why we are in power. So without the people, you are not a leader. You understand? So I always say that that's why it's called leadership. There is a leader and there is a ship. And without a ship, there is no leader. Because it's the ship that will make you the leader. And that's why it's called leadership. And so it involves almost everybody else in the country apart from you, the individual. And so such opportunities, when you are offered, whether by appointment or by election, are very unique opportunities that should keep you awake about those behind you.
Okay.
Because when they are not there, you are not there. And so you must respect and honor them. And the issue about the MPP ticket right now is a group of leaders who don't respect and honor the people.
Okay.
They don't regard the people. And so they live in the ivory tower and they live a false sense of reality that, oh, they are the Oga, they are the champions. And perhaps maybe it's becoming a tradition in the MPP. Or else you have a President Akufo-Addo who is, somebody who is so insensitive, disregard the people, does not respect the people, go around and ordering chiefs to stand up and greet him and all those things. And you have his Abedi Echiri, who is also, all over the place, comical, liar, deceiving everybody, living in his own world. Then he has brought in an Apo. So, this will mean nothing for the elections. Rather, what would become the key indicator, what will become the variable that will determine the outcome of the elections would be not only the sound policies of the NDC, because the people of this country, and as I said, almost all the groups that we have engaged as a team in the run-up to these elections want a change. They want a significant change in the system because they are feeling it and they want us to do something. And so what will make the difference would be mobilization in this election.
Mobilization?
Yes, mobilization. Because essentially, our policies, even at the level that we have announced so far, are the most workable and practical of all. And it's widely accepted. Have you heard any policy of the NDC that has been announced that is not popular? All is popular. You go and they tell you 24 hours is an excellent one. And I'm going to come to I hope that we have time so that we can talk about some few policies, critical policies, and what we are looking at. But most importantly, almost all the policies have been very popular, well received. And so the people are ready and willing to commit power to President Mahama once again. Because above all other things, they've seen him before. But what would be the variable, the key variable, the key contributor? In econometrics, we call them the independent variables, but those variables have elasticities, which elasticity will tell you the contribution to power. And I believe that variable is mobilization. How to effectively mobilize the people to deliver the votes on the election day, and most importantly, how to protect the votes. And those are things that will drive this election. Because our friends
mobilize the people to deliver the vote,
and protect the votes. That's all there is to determine this election. And so, as to whether this Napo is an Ashanti and all those things will not even come in, because in the Ashanti region, I'm sure you have seen the videos from his constituency and the things that the youth are saying. The youth are tired. You understand? They are tired of this deceit. And even they are tired of the ethnocentrism. And so those things are not going to determine these elections.
You're saying these elections because our elections have been determined in the past, sometimes on ethnocentric, tribal, regional lines, among others.
And that is why I'm telling you that this election will be a significantly different one. And perhaps where you are not looking, that is where we should look in terms of mobilization. Where you are not looking, where you think may not be a problem, that's where we would have to look at. And so that's why I'm saying that it's mobilization above all other things. But central to just mobilization and delivering the power is the policies that will fix the economy. Because when you win the power and you assume 7th January and you don't do anything drastic, it means that you have failed the people. You have disappointed the people.
When you win the power, you do not do anything. The word you use the qualifier, drastic.
Yes, drastic. Then you have failed the people. Because look, managing government from 7th January will not be child's play, particularly looking at how they have ripped the nation off, the level of corruption, the level of thievery, if you don't do anything drastic. And so it means that our policies should not only be targeted at fixing the broken economy, but most importantly, targeted at restoring integrity in political leadership. Because now when you go everywhere, there is a convenient refrain for, those who are disappointed, saying that all politicians are the same, all politicians are the same. And you saw President Mahama's encounter and the kind of questions that came. And so at this point, we are clear in our mind that beyond the economic fixes, there would be a need for us to fix the moral fiber, the moral integrity of the country. And that would be how we deal with these people.
But that will also depend on the conduct of the government you put in office.
Essentially.
The kind of leaders, the people you choose to be part of your government.
And make no mistake, President Mahama is heavily awakened to that. The kind of, and I mean, you heard his pronouncements that if you are in his government and you think that, and you, if you heard him carefully, he spoke more about his government even than the opposition. You understand? Because above all, as you deal with the opposition, you must also set an example. And President Mahama is the only president in the history of this country who has evidence, who has shown evidently that he can deal with his own government appointees. In fact, his own colleague and friend was put to jail by himself, investigated under his government and dealt with it. And never has any president in the history of Ghana done that before. We saw President Kufuor, and we have seen what Akufo-Addo is doing. I mean, a clearing agent for your biggest mistake would be to expose crime in this government. Then you become the public enemy. Then the government is against you. Even their own special prosecutor, his life is under threat. Their own special prosecutor they brought. And why? Because he was following Cecilia Dapa. You understand? And so, above all other things, any government, in fact, the President Mahama government from 7th January would not only have to fix the economy immediately, but most importantly, we have to restore some modicum of hope, some modicum of morality, integrity into the body politics of this country. And so that leads me to how to fix the economy. What is the biggest problem of this? I hope we have time. What's the biggest problem of this economy?
Let's try and see how much we can do before.
The biggest and the fundamental problem of this economy can be looked in two broad folds. The very first fold, I want to look at it from the microeconomic level. When we say microeconomic level, we are looking at the households and the businesses, households and firms and companies and all that.
Those who are suffering.
Those who are suffering. They are the receiving end. Then there is the macro, where you are looking at the aggregation of the suffering and what output it gives you. And so let's look at it from the micro level. Now, from the micro level, the biggest problem of the households is food prices. Food prices are so expensive such that 40% of your household income alone goes to only tomatoes. Maize, corn dough has not come. Cassava has not come. Plantain has not come. 40% of your household income alone goes into only tomatoes. And that's how bad it is. Your rent has not come. Our rent in Ghana is one of the highest you will get across the world. And the most insensitive of all, because then even beyond the fact that it's high, you have to pay 2 years advance to live in the house. So for a young graduate that is coming out of school, that is going into the job market, that must first of all find a place to sleep before he can get some work to do, must cough out 2 years of rent advance before they get rent. And that is one of the biggest problems. Rent. Good. When you go off rent, now utilities. Power is so expensive in Ghana and so unreliable, such that even if you want to start a business, which mainly will require power input, would be a problem. Now, beyond the unreliable power, there is water. Water, in fact, 1st July, our welcome for the Republic Day, 1st July, was an increment in water. And power and fuel as well. So fuel too is heavily expensive in Ghana. So I'm looking at it from the household level. So your power is expensive, your water is expensive, and above all, the least of all, that should have been easy, particularly in the modern trends of the world. Communication, data, very expensive. And what is the disposable income of the ordinary household? What is the average disposable income of the household. The average disposable income is next to nothing compared to the other sub-regional countries. And that is why people will struggle and go through the desert only to go and end up in Azerbaijan to go and work as house help, because they look at how much they will be paid there, and it is better if they work there. And recently you have seen the trend about somebody comparing Dutch passport to PhD. Yes, because the income levels in Ghana are very low. But you know the thing about income levels? Income levels are as low as the price levels of the country, because we have something we call PPP, purchasing power parity in economics, where purchasing power parity measures your income and the price levels. You understand? Sometimes with the price levels on the international market. And so purchasing power becomes very crucial in every economy. And the purchasing power is a function of the income divided by the price levels. Now, the inadequate disposable income, which is already inadequate, is watered down by the high inflation rate. Our inflation has gone to as high as 53%. Yesterday, I saw the new figures and it's 22. And I think that there is, I don't believe the 22% sincerely. In fact, when it was even 53, I remember I was in there and I was saying that, look, I don't believe this, because these guys are people who, you know, engage in all kinds of creative statistics. You understand? Where creative statistics
is done by the same Ghana Statistical Service.
Oh, yes, led by the one they put there. I mean, and look, make no mistake, all the creative statistics that the government has been doing is churned out by Ghana Statistical Service. All the creative statistics, all the creative economics and the creative manipulation of the numbers are done by that. And so I don't believe that, but let's assume that is even the case. Inflation is now 22%. This inflation is mainly driven by food inflation, where food inflation is the one that controls everything. And so look at the plethora of household problems that I listed, and food inflation is leading. And so what it means is that we are living in an unsurvivable regime for households. And so how do you fix household income? How do you create enough jobs so that those that are unemployed, about 14.77% of our people who are unemployed, and even that, I think that is very conservative. That is very conservative when you look at unemployment rate in Ghana. So the 14.7% of Ghanaians who are unemployed, how do you create jobs for them so that at least they can earn an income, so that at least they can live within the survivable limits? But most importantly, how do you create more jobs that will create an exponential growth in disposable income? And that is where the 24-hour economy comes in. And so the President Mahama administration is...
So that's the key driver of fixing the issues with the microeconomy.
The microeconomy. In fact, 24-hour economy is to fix the problems with the microeconomy, the households and the firms. And I spoke more about household, maybe because of time. I'm leaving out the firms, but I would come back to the firms, you know, along the line. And so what it means is that when you are able, an economy that is running 8 hours, you are able to triple the economic production to 24 hours. So what it means is that with the needed incentive regime, you get the productive forces of the country multiplying their production by 3. That means that labor will be required, because labor becomes a very important variable in production. So if labor will be required, and obviously nobody can work 24 hours continuous, so 8 hours, it means that when the first person closes, you will need another one for another 8 hours, and you will need another one to another 8 hours. So just for starters, as economists will say, ceteris paribus, all things be equal, it means that you would have multiplied your labor, your active labor force, or the working labor by 3. So all those that are unemployed, that are looking for jobs, will now get jobs to do. And the good thing about the 24-hour economy, particularly for a country like Ghana, is that if it is done very well and the productive potential of the country is unleashed, it means that you would be able to end up in a situation where people can do 1 or 2 jobs like we do in abroad. You understand? So that you can beef up the disposable income.
Okay.
And so you have other side jobs, you are doing this, then when you finish, you do 2 hours somewhere, you do another 2 hours somewhere. Then it improves your domestic income, your disposable income. Now, when your disposable income is improved, it improves the quality of life, because then you are able to now live in a comfortable, regime, because you're able to afford your power, you're able to afford your taxes, afford your feeding, and you live very well. And actually, it has implications on food security, because food security is not only the provision of food, but it is the ability to buy the quality kind of food that will give you good health, so that you can be able to contribute to national development. And so the 24-hour economy, this is the significant impact that it will have on the local economy. And when we say quick fixes, these are some of the things that will give us the long-lasting, sustainable fix, because then disposable income would have increased. But not only disposable income will increase. When you go into a 24-hour economy and output has increased and disposable income has increased, it means that you have generated demand.
Okay.
Now, the demand that you have generated, obviously, in Ghana, if you are producing more, would get to a point in time where we will produce in excess. And the thing about economic development is about excess production.
Okay.
If you don't produce in excess and you are only producing to feed your country, then you are not developing. And so this 24-hour economy, we believe, will also unleash the productive potential of Ghana to produce in excess, such that we may be able to take advantage of the international market. Somebody will say there's no demand. There's no demand. Yeah. It is only the naysayers who will say there is no demand, because even the introduction of ACTA, if we focus only in Africa, let's look at sub-regional markets. There's so much potential in the sub-regional market. So how do we leverage on the sub-regional market to also export? Then when you are able to take over the external markets based on your excesses, it means that then you rake in more foreign exchange. In raking in more foreign exchange, you solve your balance of payment problems. When you solve your balance of payment problems, your pass-through effect on import inflation or import prices of exchange rate would also come down. Because now the biggest problem, again, apart from food inflation, that is causing prices to go up every time, is exchange rate. Because most of the things we consume, we import them. Okay. And so the pass-through effect, in fact, in 2013, I started a study which I'm trying to finalize and publish again. I mean, I did it for my thesis. I studied the exchange rate pass-through to import prices. And the pass-through effect, as it stands now, is almost 1. And so when you say the pass-through effect is 1, it means that every price is determined by the exchange rate. So if exchange rate shoots up from 15 cedis to the dollar to 16, it shoots immediately by the same value. You understand? And so that is the kind of crisis that we are in. But when you are able to fix your exchange rate problem by increasing your production, leveraging the international market, and competing on the international market, you rake in more exchange, and you are able to balance up the pressures on the foreign currency.
Can we do something? I don't know if it's possible we can bring you back next week.
We can try.
No, let's get a commitment, because essentially you're just talking about the 24-hour economy and how it will work through the economy for you.
Yes.
There are some consequential questions, and whether they are not maybe easy to access fruits that you can go with to try to fix the economy. So if you can commit to it, we'll put you on same time.
So now you know I'm available 24/7, except that there are a lot of things that I do now.
I know.
And mostly it keeps me away. But I think that I can commit to next week. Next week, Thursday, I think I can commit to that. I can commit to that.
Great. Because there's
so much to talk about in policy. And I really wish that we'll get that time. So we'll come back next week.
Great.
We'll do that.
It'll be nice to see you. Nice to see you today.
Meeting you always feels great. Except that the last time I saw you, you had put on some more. I can see that the economy is having a toll on you, and you are reducing. But it's having a toll on all of us, and so don't worry. very soon you'll be fine.
Dr. Peter Boamah Otokunor is director of Interparty and Civil Society.
Nancy says that I always use tactics. I defend first so that I don't get any attack.
Of the National Democratic Congress, join us in studio. Hopefully, we'll work